Unidad para indigentes y F1 para que trasladen al compañero que lleva las llaves de los candados. Paso. Se agradece para conocimiento de los mandos.
Para que te vuelvan a la paz.
Viewer discretion is advised. This video contains content that may be disturbing or inappropriate for some audiences. Viewer advisement is recommended. The mansion stood as a monolith of luxury deep within 40 acres of untamed woodland. Its towering columns framed an entrance fit for royalty, and its facade, a combination of rich red brick and sprawling glass, reflected the moonlight, as if nature itself admired its grandeur. It was an architectural masterpiece, the kind of home that whispered tales of old money and quiet power. Yet tonight, the mansion was a fiery inferno, its magnificence succumbing to the blaze devouring it. The emergency dispatch erupted with frantic calls as neighbors miles away spotted the glowing fireball lighting up the sky. The nearest fire station, Station 47, answered the call. Firefighters Mark, Sean, and Eric piled into the engine, hearts racing as they tore through the winding forest road toward the blaze. Alongside them, an ambulance followed closely, paramedics ready for the inevitable casualties. As they arrived, the heat was palpable even from a distance. The fire roared like a beast unleashed, its orange tendrils licking the starless sky. The mansion's ornate windows burst from the pressure, raining glass shards down on the front lawn.
God, it's massive, Eric muttered,
his breath visible in the cold night air. Mark and Sean shared a grim glance as they unrolled the hoses. The first task was to keep the fire from spreading into the dense forest surrounding the property. They worked in tandem, spraying the inferno with all their might. And then they heard it, a piercing scream, slicing through the crackling of flames.
"There's someone in there!"
Sean shouted, his voice barely audible over the chaos. Mark grabbed Eric's shoulder.
"We're going in."
The three men pushed through the mansion's grand double doors. Smoke engulfed them immediately, reducing their visibility to almost nothing. The interior, once opulent with the gilded mirrors and crystal chandeliers, was now a maze of collapsing beams and molten debris. The screams grew louder, leading them deeper into the house. The fire seemed to intensify the closer they got to the source.
"Back of the house,"
Eric called, gesturing forward. They reached a heavy closed door, seemingly untouched by the flames. The screams were muffled now, but unmistakable. Mark and Sean braced themselves as Eric kicked it open. The door splintered, revealing a grisly scene. Two bodies lay lifeless on the floor, their hands bound behind their backs. Blood pooled beneath their heads, their execution-style deaths chillingly deliberate. Scrawled across the wall in dark, dripping letters were the words, "Time is running out. I'm still in here. You're next." Before they could react, a loud crack echoed above them. A massive wooden beam, engulfed in flames, crashed down between Eric and the others, trapping Mark and Sean under its weight.
"Eric, help us,"
Mark cried, but the encroaching flames made it impossible for Eric to reach them.
"I'll get help,"
Eric shouted, backing away as debris continued to fall. The fire consumed the room rapidly, leaving Mark and Sean helpless beneath the rubble. Their screams faded as Eric pushed forward alone, navigating the inferno. The mansion was a labyrinth of destruction. Eric stumbled into a closet, which led to a smoke-filled bathroom. Disoriented, he found himself in the kitchen, where a figure stood waiting. The man was heavy-set, his face obscured by a soot-covered respirator mask. He was dressed in protective gear, his presence deliberate amidst the chaos. "You made it," the man said, his voice muffled but dripping with malice.
Who are you?
Eric demanded, his axe raised defensively. The man removed his mask, revealing a face etched with years of bitterness. His eyes burned with hatred. "This isn't random," he said. "This is justice." Eric's mind raced as the man continued. 5 years ago, my mother called 911. Her house was on fire. She was trapped. You remember, don't you? No fire hydrant nearby, so you used the reserves to save the woods instead of her. You let her die. Eric's stomach dropped. He remembered the incident. The fire had been spreading toward a residential area beyond the woods, and the decision had been agonizing.
You're insane,
Eric said.
I did what I had to do to stop the fire from spreading.
You chose the woods over my mother, the man roared, lunging at Eric. The two grappled amidst the flames, their fight desperate and brutal. Eric swung his axe, but the man was prepared, dodging and countering with a blade of his own. The heat was unbearable, the air thick with smoke. Finally, the man overpowered Eric, driving his knife into his chest. Eric collapsed, the life draining from him as the killer whispered, "This was always for her." Outside, the fire intensified. Flames shot through a second-story window as the killer leapt through, landing hard on the ground below. Covered in ash and blood, he stumbled toward the paramedics, feigning injury. Emma, a paramedic and Eric's fiancée, rushed to his aid, unaware of who he truly was. She helped him into the ambulance, her focus solely on saving a life. As they sped toward the hospital, Emma received a devastating radio call. None of the firefighters had made it out alive. Eric, Mark, and Sean were gone. Emma's grief was immediate and overwhelming.
Eric!
She whispered, tears streaming down her face. She turned to the killer, who sat silently, his face a mask of false pain.
He was my fiancé.
She sobbed.
We were supposed to be married next month.
The man's lips curled into a chilling grin. As Emma turned to grab supplies, he pulled a knife from his boot. "Sorry about that," he said mockingly. Before Emma could react, he lunged, plunging the knife into her back. She gasped, struggling to fight back, but the killer was relentless. Chaos erupted in the ambulance as the driver and another paramedic tried to intervene. The killer fought them off, escaping into the woods under the cover of darkness. The mansion burned to the ground, taking its secrets with it. The killer vanished, leaving behind a trail of devastation. For Station 47, it was the tragedy that would haunt them forever.